Tom Brady potentially coming back from retirement. So that's my off the ride comment. You have Aaron Rodgers. So that's the big news coming out of the NFL, at least when it comes to quarterbacks, and the big news out of the franchise tag Tuesday. But we want to revisit now our game from last week. Adam and, of course, Michael, who couldn't join us today, Michael Dobbins, he couldn't join us. But last week we played the game Sign, Tag, or Let Go. Now that we have some of the results, want to revisit this with Adam to see how we feel about the predictions that we made and how things played out. Of course, the first one was Lamar Jackson. We all said that Lamar Jackson would get the franchise tag. He did. We didn't play the game exclusive or non-exclusive franchise tag, but we all got that one correct. The next one we had was Saquon Barkley. I said let Saquon go. Adam said sign him. Michael said let him go. Adam, do you feel like the Giants made the right decision in tagging him rather than signing him?
Yeah, like I mentioned, I think that was going to go either way. I think they were going to tag Jones and sign Barkley or vice versa. So I just picked the wrong one. But essentially, I think what happened there is kind of what I figured would happen in New York.
Totally. The next one, Josh Jacobs. The Raiders decided to tag him. I said let him go. Adam went with sign. Michael said let go. Adam, you got this one right. They're going to be keeping him. I certainly think that's going to help when they go to draft a rookie quarterback, which it looks like that's going to ultimately happen. Do you feel like the same way, Adam?
Yep, I agree, 100%.
Next player, Tony Pollard. Dallas Cowboys have tagged him. That surprised me a little bit. I mentioned last week I thought it would be better for them to sign him, given that the tag year, a lot of that would be committed or devoted to a rehab and trying to get back to the status and quality of play and production that we saw from Tony Pollard earlier this year. That said, still plenty of time for my prediction for him to get signed to stay true. Adam went in a different direction. Adam, you said let Tony Pollard go. Do you feel like you are going to ultimately be right about this one and that they should have let him go, or do you feel like you might have missed the boat on it?
I might have missed the boat on this one a little bit. Like I said, they have a lot of money tied up in Ezekiel, although Pollard is a more dynamic back right now. But the injury to Pollard is just a little bit of question mark. But, yeah, I think I'm going to miss the boat this one. I think Pollard will end up staying.
Patriots not only didn't sign Jacoby Myers, rather, Jonathan Jones, their talented corner, they let him go. We didn't talk about him. But one defensive back that we did talk about, Jordan Poyer, as far as I know, the Bills did not tag him. Is there any Adam, did you hear anything? I didn't hear that he got tagged. So it looks like he's going to be a free agent, and in which case I think the New York Giants with Brian Daboll could be a perfect fit, given their history coming off their time together in Buffalo. Are you surprised that the Bills didn't tag the safety who had so much success for them over the last few years?
Yeah, like we talked about last week, I am. They're a different football team when he's on the field. We talked about the numbers, and the only game they lost, I believe he played, was the playoff game. Correct me if I'm wrong. But, there was some talk about him wanting to go play down south somewhere, whether it was Miami or Tampa or something like that. I read an article this week. So maybe, that's come true. Maybe he's just going to move on to greener pastures. But, yeah, I am definitely surprised that Buffalo wouldn't want to keep him in the fold, as dynamic of a player he is for them.
Yeah, really surprised me. Definitely someone that came out of nowhere as a potential free agent that I think could make a lot of teams better, especially the contending teams that were in the playoffs last year that are just a few pieces away. Speaking of which, Evan Ingram's going to stay in Jacksonville. They tagged the tight end. This is one we all said they should sign him. I still feel like a deal could be made, but the Jacksonville Jaguars keep their star tight end, while Jesse Bates, safety of the Cincinnati Bengals, he'll be a free agent. And Jonathan Hargrave, Javin Hargrave, I'm always get his name wrong, forgive me. He will also be a free agent. So a couple also things that we got right. Switching gears, moving away from NFL free agency and tags, franchise tagging. The Combine just went down last week in Indy. We got to see all the prospects that are preparing for the NFL draft. A lot of players stood out. Want to go back and forth with you, Adam, about each position and players that stood out. We'll start at the quarterback position. I'll go first. I talked about him last week. I expected him to be a name everyone would be buzzing about once he had his on-field workouts and measurements. Anthony Richardson, University of Florida quarterback. He was unbelievable. his vertical leap, his 40-yard time, the strength of his arm on his deep passes. He showed the Panthers, the Colts, all the Seahawks potentially, all these teams that he's the right quarterback in terms of size and stature that you may want to make a bit of a risky play on, like a Patrick Mahomes, and that you might want to move up, get your man, because this guy's talent is through the roof. Loved what I saw from him. He was kind of my standout quarterback from the combine. Adam, who was yours?
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head on that one. He definitely helped himself in the combine. Obviously he went in with a lot of hype, and people were already looking to him to put up some numbers. But I think his draft stock definitely jumped if it wasn't already on the rise already. I'm going to go a little deeper down the list. I'm going to take a look at Stetson Bennett from Georgia. You know, a lot of I take a look at some of these quarterbacks in college, and they may not have all the intangibles, but I like guys that play in big games and play in a lot of big games and play for teams that like have a lot of pressure on them, to go undefeated seasons and play in these big bowl games. And Stetson Bennett's kind of one of those guys. He's not that big. He's not going to wow you with anything, but he's smart. He takes care of the football. He's shifty. I know he ran a 4.67 40, which, by quarterback standards, I guess, it's not all that great these days, especially with some of these other quarterbacks that are coming out now that are really quick. But I think he could be a really good quarterback down in the draft. He's not going to get drafted early by any means, but I think this is a guy you could put on your football team, and he's a good, high caliber quality quarterback and smart football knowledge. And I think he would be a really, really good backup. So going down the charts a little bit and talk about some guys that are off the page there, but I think Stetson Bennett could be a really good addition to somebody later in the draft.
I love that call by you. I thought Stetson Bennett really helped his case. Obviously, you win national championships on a superstar level team, you're going to get discredited. Just ask A.J. McCarron. But that said, he really threw the ball pretty well. Obviously, I thought he showed what he could do with his legs in some of the drills. But even more importantly, I think he got away from the narrative after the national championship that was about a DUI and some off the field stuff. And he went back to showing that this guy is a better competitor than we think. The only thing that really is the asterisk for me on him, and I'll never forget it, is that guy is an old man at this point. What is he, 25 years old? I mean, is he the same age as Lamar Jackson? Like, is he slightly younger? But the whole point is he has so many years on him, the ability to get some progress. He doesn't have any runway left. He is either in the air as kind of a fully formed quarterback or not. I did think he helped his draft stock, but I'm still expecting sixth or seventh round at best, right, Adam?
Yeah, I think so. I think he's going to be a sixth, seventh round guy that, like I said, you bring him into the fold. A good high IQ football guy that can help your football team. Yep, agreed.
Gotcha. Okay, let's shift to running back. Adam, we'll start with you on this one. Who was a running back that stood out to you after the combine results?
So one guy I really liked all year long last year, and he's a really good football player. He can catch the football, he can block, and he's a really, really good runner, is Zach Charbonnet out of UCLA. I know he ran a 4.53 40-yard dash, running back standards. It's okay. Robinson out of Texas ran a 4.46, and he's supposed to be the highest graded running back in this draft. But I just really like the way Charbonnet plays. He's just a good football player. He's really dynamic. Like I said, he ran for a ton of yards for that UCLA program, and he's got soft hands to catch the ball out of the backfield. The vertical jump was 37. So, I wish they did more with running backs. Like, instead of doing the bench press, I wish they did like squats or something like that. So you could really see the strength of the lower body of a running back. So vertical jump's really the only one you kind of really take a look at and say, okay, this guy's got, this kind of lower body to get vertical on it. But having said that, we don't have those numbers, but I think Charbonnet helped himself with during the combine and let the other, scouts and stuff see his agility and what he can do. So I think you might see him go a little bit higher than originally projected.
Love that call. I'm not crazy about this running back class. I've spoken to some others who think it's deeper. I'm not of that opinion. I'm not as wowed by it. But a player who's starting to catch my eye is one of those middle of the draft picks. Maybe it's as early as late second round, early third round, is Jahmyr Gibbs out of Alabama. He ran a 4.36 in the 40. I like him. He's not as flashy as some of the running backs that Alabama's had over the last few years, but I think he's a good running back if you want to pick up somebody who's going to be consistent, is going to give you a burst as a rookie. Again, I expect him to hit that rookie wall, but you can get 10, 12 games out of him where he can be really good in a tandem. I'm always looking at the Patriots when it comes to Alabama. Damian Harris is gone. Jahmyr Gibbs would fit in nicely. It probably is too high for the Patriots to go draft a running back where he will ultimately come off the board. But that's the kind of tandem running back backfield that I'm thinking. Look for a team that wants to pair, maybe even someone like the Houston Texans. I know they have Dameon Pierce, but you pair Pierce with Gibbs. Seahawks is another one. You pair Walker the third with Gibbs. That's a nice tandem, and it's definitely one that kind of stood out to me because he has a bit more speed than I expected. You know he has the intelligence. You know he has the toughness. He's played against elite competition. So I liked what I saw from Jahmyr Gibbs. He's definitely someone who I think increased their draft stock over the combine. Moving now to wide receiver, I'll go in on this one. Jalen Hyatt was a name I had my eye on going into the combine. I was excited to see how he was going to perform. He did well enough in the 40 time, running a 440. And then in the drills, I thought he performed exactly how I wanted him to, which is he's really talented. He showed it during Tennessee's season, especially in that Alabama game. I wanted to see him just have a consistent day. He didn't need to be too spectacular. I thought he was good enough to be a second round pick. I really like him. Again, it might be late second round, early third, but I thought Hyatt did enough to really impress me and stand out at the wide receiver position. Who was that wide receiver for you, Adam?
Well, I know you and I talked about last week about we're on opposite sides of the fence with the wide receiver class this year. I know you're not too big on it, and I'm on the other side. I think it's a really deep class. If you go up and down the list between Addison, the Jigba from Ohio State, Hyatt, as you mentioned, super talented wide receiver, Downs, Reed, Tillman. I just think the list goes on and on. This wide receiver core, I really, really like this class. I'm going to take a look at Marvin Mims Jr. from Oklahoma. I know he's a little short on the end at 5'11", but he ran a 4.38 40, had almost an 11-foot broad jump and almost a 40-inch vertical. He's the kind of guy that can be a deep threat, and he's also really, really good run after the catch. So Marvin Mims Jr., again, Oklahoma, a big-time program. He made a lot of big plays for that organization. I really, really like the fact that he came in at a 4.38 40. I think that's definitely going to help him. I think he was around maybe just out of the top 10 ranked for wide receivers, but I think this will definitely put him probably 7th, 8th, 9th ranked wide receiver on the draft board. So I think he definitely helped himself.
Well, you're higher on the wide receiver position than I am. I'm a big fan of the tight end position. I'm going to let you start, though, on this one, Adam. Who is a tight end that stood out to you from the combine?
Well, this stood out to me in the combine. Unless I'm mistaken, I don't believe he went, and that's Jake Bobo from UCLA. Big tight end, 6'4". I know he's kind of a wide receiver tight end kind of tweener, but Jake Bobo, and I know going back to Charbonnet again, but that UCLA offense was absolutely potent this year. Although I was wrong with DTR. I did think he was going to have a little bit better of a combine than he did. He kind of struggled a little bit, but with that UCLA offense, Jake Bobo, 6'4", 210 pounds. He can block. He can receive, real soft hands, and he definitely can move with the ball after the catch. So unless I'm mistaken, I didn't see him at the combine, but Jake Bobo is a tight end I would watch for the draft.
So I'm actually going to start here with a tight end that I expected to perform better, and he didn't. So it's kind of a disappointing one. And that's Michael Mayer. He really didn't stand out to me at the combine in a way that I expected him to. He wasn't the name in the tight end position that everyone was buzzing about. Now, I am happy to say that the one people were buzzing about is one I tipped off last week, and that's Darnell Washington of Georgia. Massive size, and you also saw some incredible hands, but in the blocking drill with the sled, he dominated. He had an unbelievable one-handed catch, got the toe tap almost both in. He is my favorite tight end in this draft. He probably won't be the first one taken off the board. Again, probably a second-round pick. I really have the Lions targeting him. I think he would be a great replacement for Hawkinson after they moved on from Hawkinson last year. But I was dazzled by Darnell Washington. He was not the best tight end at Georgia this past year, but he is proving to be one of the best tight ends in this draft. Love his size. He ran a good 40 time. Everything about him, I'm just gaga. So we better move on before my man crush for Darnell Washington shows even more. Let's move to the defensive side of the ball and the defensive line. I'll kick this one off. And it's another Georgia player, Nolan Smith. Great 40 time, 4.39, unbelievable speed, performed really well in the bag drills. If you want to build a great team, build a defense of Georgia football players. I'm just impressed by his metrics. I'm impressed by his film. Love Nolan Smith. I think he is an edge rusher that every team would want. Love him right now.
Yeah, I agree. And, Quay Walker for us for the Packers, we drafted him, and he really came on this year. He made some pretty bonehead plays towards the end of the year. But he's definitely a Georgia football player, plays in a lot of big games. Another college team that plays in a lot of big games, albeit down his last couple of years, has been Clemson. But Miles Murphy as the edge rusher on there, I think he's really disruptive. He's big. He's 6'5", almost 270. Really, really active and a high motor guy, coming from that tough Clemson defense. So as an edge rusher, if you're not going to go with a Georgia guy, I think you could slide over to Clemson and pick up Miles Murphy.
Love that pick. What about the linebacker position, Adam?
So linebacker position, I'm going to stay in the Big Ten because that's what I am, a Big Ten guy. And we love, 10-9 games in the Big Ten. And Iowa's defense this year was really, really, really good. And Jack Campbell was kind of the spearhead of that defense. He ran a 4.65 40 and a 10.8 broad jump, which is pretty good. 37.5 vertical is not bad. He's 6'5", 250. Again, size. He can move at 6'5". He can run a 4.65 40. An inside linebacker, I think he's definitely a guy you need to take a look at, especially with that tough Iowa defense. He can play in any conditions. We know that. He can play, in tough, cold weather conditions. So I love Big Ten type linebackers, except for them from Ohio State. Anyone from Ohio State, that's fine. But the other teams I like. So I like Jack Campbell from Iowa.
At the linebacker position for me, I'm going to give two. Really like Jeremy Banks out of Tennessee. Like what I saw from him in the combine. Ran a bit faster than I expected. Like what I saw from him throughout the season. And then another linebacker that I just, again, bit of a man crush. Probably like him more than even his combine results should indicate. And that's Henry To'oTo'o. I think he's going to fall in the draft because he's not spectacular when it comes to his film or his metrics, his 40 time. But this dude is just around the football. He just makes a ton of plays. He makes tackles, and he's not flashy. He's a workman, but at middle linebacker, sometimes that's what you need. You need a guy who's just going to clean up on tackles. And Henry To'oTo'o, I definitely have my eye on him. It might be a 4th round pick. He might even fall to like an early 5th round. If he falls there, I think he's an absolute steal in the way that Nakobe Dean was last year for the Philadelphia Eagles. It's just a guy who's always around the football, but it's not a sexy play. He's just a pure tackler. I actually think there are a lot of teams that could use him, so I have my eyes on him. Finally, we shift to defensive back. We mentioned last week in our show how deep this defensive back position is and how many players are really going to stand out. I have a couple. I have two that I wanted to call out. The first is Christian Gonzalez of Oregon. Oh my God. If you love good defensive back play, this guy will get you excited because he does everything technically well, ran a great 40 time, has size, is fluid in his motion. I mean, last year it was Kyle Hamilton, the safety out of Notre Dame, who was kind of that create a player in Madden who has all the perfect things in terms of size, wingspan, speed, technical ability, and skill. This year, to me, it's Christian Gonzalez. I'm over the moon about him. He had a great combine. I think he's a top 10 pick right now. I think he is. I would argue he might be the best corner in this draft. I know others would contend that, but I think he's making a case for it. The other one who I've really fallen in love with is Deonte Banks out of Maryland. He ran a great 40 time at 4.35. Really like what I've seen from him. He, to me, is a 2nd round pick. Some people may think that's taking him a little too high. I think he's going to turn into a real stud. So those are two cornerbacks who really stood out to me. Adam, from the defensive backs, who really stood out to you?
So I have two of them here. And the first one, back to the Big Ten, not by design, but Penn State, Joey Porter Jr. And the reason I like Joey Porter Jr. is I know he ran a 4.46 40, and it's not bad, right? But people are going to raise their eyebrows at it. But he's 6'2.5". He's a big guy. He's 200 pounds. So to run a 4.40 with that kind of size cornerback, especially this day in the NFL, with
and
these
press
big
corner at that.
Yep, a press corner with these big, tall, lanky wide receivers, with these jump balls and things that they're doing these days. So I think Joey Porter Jr. with his size and with his ability there and his agility and that 4.4 speed, I think is really somebody to look at. And the other one is I didn't see any combine times for him, but just watching the Big Ten this year, Devin Witherspoon from Illinois. Illinois had a top 5 defense this year. They were suffocating at times. And, other than him being a little undersized at 5'11", he's scrappy. He's kind of a ball hawk. I know he gets a little handsy at time and has got some penalties thrown at him. But I like my cornerbacks to be football players, like to be gamers and get in there and tackle. And I think that tough Illinois defense was made part because of Devin Witherspoon's play.
Two thoughts on Joey Porter Jr. One, I thought his 40 time is going to make him a steal. He is going to fall because teams are going to move up to take a quarterback, or teams are going to move up to take speed or something like that. And he could fall to a Patriots, to a Steelers, to a team that either made the playoffs or just missed the playoffs. And he is going to be such a find for them. To your comment, he has unbelievable size, great instincts, obviously the DNA and the pedigree. And I like everything about him. I actually thought his 40 time was something I liked because it means he's going to fall in the draft, but it says nothing about his overall skill set. I actually thought that that's going to make him easier to draft if you're a team that's a piece away. The only other comment I want to make on Joey Porter Jr. has nothing to do with football. It has to do with sports media coverage, because the NFL Network did their NFL Combine coverage, and during that kid's 40 time, they were talking to Joey Porter Sr. rather, and they were all up in Joey Porter Sr.'s grill. And you think this is the one chance a kid gets to run the 40. If he wants to look up at his parents and get a word of encouragement, he shouldn't have to contend with an NFL Network interview. If you want to interview Joey Porter during any other time, any other drill, that's perfectly acceptable. But the 40 time is the one where the runner can literally look over at their family or at coaches or at people in the stands and literally get a little bit of encouragement. I thought the NFL, like usual, did a brilliant job in its NFL Combine coverage. I applaud everyone on that crew in the production area. They did a brilliant job. But sometimes, can we just let parents and kids like have their little moment? Do we really need to be the fly that gets in the middle of their picnic? I just thought it was a miss on them. Adam, what do you think?
No, I agree. 100% miss on that for sure. But one thing we didn't talk about, which we talked a little bit about last week, is we finally got an accurate measurement on Bryce Young. He came in at 5'10" in the eighth and 204 pounds. So what are your thoughts? He actually came in a little bit less than we thought he was at 5'11", or 6 foot.
I think it's really concerning. And I don't feel any differently than I did a week ago, because if I did, it would be like, oh my God, he's half an inch shorter, he's a quarter of an inch shorter. But it's actually like, no, he is small. And I think there's a lot of talented quarterbacks in this league who can't survive if they're not big enough. I mean, Patrick Mahomes, you saw the beating he took. You see Joe Burrow, the beatings he takes. Josh Allen, do I really think someone of a smaller size can go through an entire NFL season? Bryce Young, to me, the two comps over the last few years would be Kyler Murray and Tua Tagovailoa. Both of those guys got hurt this year. Both of those guys missed time. I feel like Bryce Young is worth passing on, especially because though I don't like Will Levis when it comes to competition, man, that dude can fire the football. Like Will Levis, we didn't talk about him because he didn't stand out in the ways that Anthony Richardson did, but Will Levis can fire the football. And CJ Stroud, he showed off. He had a great combine too. I actually thought the quarterbacks as a whole did a really good job, which put some pressure on Bryce Young because he didn't compete, and at the same time, he came in undersized. So, Adam, do you feel the same way, or do you not care about the size at all?
No, I feel the same way. I look at, as you mentioned, Kyler Murray, a direct relation to that. They're going to take a beating, and these guys just, they get hurt. And that's just, I hate to say it, but that's just the nature of the NFL. And I'll be honest with you, it'll be interesting to see what happens because, like you just mentioned, Will Levis, I'm with you. He can fire the ball, but I've not been a huge Will Levis fan, and I won't continue to be. But you mentioned it. C.J. Stroud had a really good showing at the Combine and really showed off his arm strength. And not only his arm strength, but the touch on deep passes. He has a really, really nice touch on some deep throws. There could be a shift and say, you know what, Richardson jumped up the board, but maybe not enough to take him number 1 overall, but he maybe jumped in the top 5. But that team that's looking at Bryce Young may be thinking C.J. Stroud could be their guy now instead of Bryce Young after all.
I'm really interested to see what happens over the pro days and in the final weeks before the draft, because Vegas called this. Vegas dramatically shifted, or a lot of heavy money must have come down on Anthony Richardson being the number 1 overall pick. And people knew something, in part because Bryce Young wasn't a slam dunk. People want to, for some reason, people just don't want to buy into CJ Stroud. It kind of reminds me like Justin Fields a couple of years ago. Like, this guy's better than you think he is. Just because it's Ohio State and it's the Big Ten, or I don't know what this is about, but CJ Stroud's a really good quarterback. So I don't think Bryce, and by the way, and Will Levis is going to get more attention as we talk about his throwing ability and how he can fire the football. So look out, because Bryce Young, we see so often a quarterback that's kind of the darling of college football, Johnny Manziel style or Brady Quinn style or some other, where they fall in the draft because they might be talked about as one of the great all-time college football quarterbacks, but they don't live up to what scouts want in the NFL, and for that reason they can slip. I'm not saying Bryce Young's going to slip outside the top 5, but I wouldn't be surprised if he's not only not the first quarterback taken, I wouldn't be surprised if he's not the second quarterback taken, and I certainly didn't think that 6 months ago, but the trends are leaning in that direction. We're going to shift now away from the combine, shift away from the draft, and close out the show with the segment we always close out the show with, which is Mark My Words. That's where Adam and I make some predictions that we're going to keep our receipts. We'll be held to this, and we'll have to check back in later to see if we got it right. We're going to do this around the quarterbacks that we mentioned in the opening of the show who signed some deals. Adam, we'll start with Lamar Jackson. We're going to make a statement. Mark my words, Lamar Jackson and the Baltimore Ravens will, in 2023, fill it in.
Mark my words, Lamar Jackson and the Ravens in 2023 will have a separation. He will play elsewhere.
Okay. Mark my words, Lamar Jackson and the Baltimore Ravens will play against each other in the 2023 season after a team makes an offer and moves on. I know that's a long shot, but I'm willing to put odds on it. Given that we've gotten to this point, I'll double down on the plus money, saying not only will they move on from Lamar Jackson, but Lamar Jackson will go to a team that actually plays the Ravens in the 2023 season. We'll now go to Aaron Rodgers. Mark my words, Aaron Rodgers and Woody Johnson's night out in LA will result in blank. Adam, fill in the blank.
I told you, we can't jinx anything on this thing. I can't say he's going to pay for the Jets. I can't jinx anything. I can't do it, okay? So you know I'm going to say I'm just going to pass on this one, but you know what my mark my word would be.
Well, mark my words, they found a nice spot in Nobu to snuggle up, and Aaron Rodgers will be wearing gangrene by the end of the period of time. You know, whenever the trade period can go through, he will ultimately be moving on. That's my mark my words. Okay, next one. Mark my words, Geno Smith will have how many wins in the 2023 season for the Seahawks? Adam, you go first.
Mark my words, Geno Smith and the Seahawks will have 10 wins next season.
Okay. I'm going to go with mark my words, the Seahawks are going to have 8 wins next season. I do actually think that I know they've got a lot of draft picks, but I feel like the competition will ultimately, they'll regress a little bit. So I'll say 8 wins. Okay, mark my words. Derek Carr and the Saints will finish where in the NFC conference, in the NFC as a whole? Where will they finish overall in terms of record?
So mark my words, the Saints will finish with an 11-6 record and win the NFC South and lose as a 4 seed in the NFL playoffs.
Oh my God, you almost took the exact same thing from me. Okay, so mark my words, I think they get 11 wins. I have the same. I think they win the NFC South. I think they win in the first round of the playoffs. I think they are the 4 seed, but in overall standings, I think they have the 5th best record in the NFC. That would be my prediction. Okay, last one. Daniel Jones will start how many games in the 2025 regular season? Keep in mind, he's now on a 4-year deal, so this would be year 3 of this contract. Adam, Daniel Jones will start how many games in the 2025 regular season for the New York Giants?
Mark my words, I believe Daniel Jones will start 0 games in that third year of his contract. I believe he'll play 2 years, and the Giants will be moving on.
Okay, mark my words. I think it's going to be an Alex Smith situation. I think in the third year of his deal, I'll say he plays 11 games, and then they move on to some rookie who then takes over after a bye week or something like that. And that's how we play Mark My Words, predictions that we now have on record, and we will go back to in the future when we are right or wrong. Appreciate all of you joining us for this Butt Fumble Sports Weekly NFL show. As always, I want to give a big shout out to the co-host, Adam. You can catch him on Twitter at SpotterAJ, SPOTTERAJ. Does a great job for us with football content and so many other things. Adam, appreciate you as always. And of course, want to give a big shout out to the Butt Fumble Sports production team led by Bleece. You can check him out at BLEACENFT on Twitter. Bleece does a great job for us. He's one of the most talented guys around. Definitely check him out. And of course, make sure you follow us on TikTok, Instagram, and on YouTube, Butt Fumble Sports, and on Twitter at Sports Fumble. As always, go to our website, buttfumblesports.com. Sign up for our free newsletter. It comes out every Friday with all of our game notes and gambling trends for everything going down around the world of sports every weekend. And be sure to follow us on TikTok Live and on YouTube. That way you know every time we have a streaming show. We'll be doing that throughout the next few weeks with college basketball action. Every Tuesday at 7 p.m. on Twitter Spaces, we will do this NFL Weekly show. So make sure you join us, follow us, and subscribe. And that way you're getting all of your NFL action and coverage throughout the offseason. Appreciate all of you. Make sure you follow us and join us every time we go and talk football. And until then, have a great week.